Have you ever felt completely blindsided when your adult child excluded you from something important, leaving you wondering where you went wrong as a parent? What I'm about to share with you happened to me just 3 months ago, and it shattered everything I thought I knew about my relationship with my daughter. This isn't just another wedding drama story. It's about the painful moment when you realize your child sees you as too much, and the life-changing decision that followed. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through exactly how I discovered I wasn't invited to my own daughter's bachelorette party, the devastating conversation that revealed what she really thought of me, and the bold move I made that completely changed our relationship dynamic forever. If you've ever struggled with feeling pushed aside by your adult children, or if you're afraid of being seen as the overbearing parent, this story will show you how to reclaim your worth without destroying the relationship you've spent decades building. By the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the most loving thing you can do as a parent is to step back and set boundaries, even when it feels like you're risking everything. You'll learn the exact approach that transformed my relationship with my daughter from one of hidden resentment to genuine respect and appreciation. I'm sitting in my kitchen on what should have been an ordinary Tuesday morning in October, sunlight streaming through the same windows where I used to watch my daughter Emma build sandcastles in our backyard sandbox 25 years ago. The coffee in my favorite ceramic mug, the one Emma painted for me in 3rd grade with wonky purple flowers, is growing cold as I scroll mindlessly through my phone, but I don't mind because this quiet morning routine has become my sanctuary since Emma moved into her own apartment across town 6 months ago. Emma's wedding is exactly 3 months away, and I've been completely immersed in helping her plan every detail, from comparing venue pricing spreadsheets to accompanying her to countless dress fittings where we debate between ivory and champagne satin for hours. Our daily phone calls have become the highlight of my day, filled with discussions about centerpiece arrangements, menu tastings, and the endless coordination required for a celebration that will bring together over 200 guests. I genuinely believed we had grown closer than ever during this engagement period, bonding over shared Pinterest boards and late-night conversations about her future with David, her wonderfully patient fiancé who somehow manages to stay calm amid all our wedding planning chaos. The house feels expansive and eerily quiet now that Emma no longer lives here, but our constant communication has made me feel like I'm still an integral part of her daily life, still her go-to person for advice, still the mother who knows her better than anyone else in the world. I've been so proud of the woman she's become, independent, successful, confident, while still maintaining what I thought was a close, trusting relationship with me. This morning feels like countless others we've shared recently, peaceful and full of anticipation for the beautiful celebration we're creating together. My entire world shifts in the space of a heartbeat when I see Sarah's Instagram post, and suddenly the warm kitchen morning transforms into something cold and unfamiliar. Sarah, Emma's college roommate and maid of honor, has uploaded a perfectly curated collage of photos with a caption that makes my stomach drop. Can't wait for Emma's bachelorette weekend in NYC. The girls are going to absolutely tear up the town and make memories that will last forever. I find myself staring at the screen, scrolling through image after image of smiling faces I recognize: Emma's sorority sisters, her work colleagues, her future sister-in-law Jessica, even David's mother Patricia, who I've always had a somewhat competitive relationship with regarding wedding involvement. But as I continue scrolling, examining each photo with increasing desperation, the devastating truth becomes undeniable. I am nowhere to be seen in any of these images, not even mentioned in the lengthy list of tagged participants that Sarah has meticulously included in her caption. My own daughter, the child I carried for 9 months, the little girl whose scraped knees I kissed better, whose teenage heartbreaks I helped heal with ice cream and wisdom, didn't invite me to her bachelorette party. The exclusion feels deliberate and calculated, not like an oversight or a simple misunderstanding that could be easily explained away with a phone call. The coffee mug slips from my trembling fingers, shattering against the tile floor in a crash that echoes through the silent house like a physical manifestation of my breaking heart. As I stare at the ceramic shards scattered across the kitchen floor, pieces of that imperfect, beloved cup that Emma made with such pride and love all those years ago, I realize this isn't just about missing a party or being left out of a weekend trip. This is about being deliberately excluded from a significant milestone moment in my daughter's life, and the betrayal cuts deeper than any pain I've experienced since her father and I divorced when she was 12. For 3 excruciating hours, I pace around my house like a caged animal, rehearsing conversations in my head while cleaning up the broken mug and trying to convince myself there must be some reasonable explanation for why I wasn't included in Emma's Bachelorette celebration. Maybe it was an oversight, maybe the invitation got lost in the chaos of wedding planning, maybe Sarah simply forgot to mention me in her social media post. But deep down I know I'm grasping at straws, desperately trying to avoid confronting the painful reality that my daughter chose to exclude me from this important event. When I finally gather enough courage to dial Emma's number, my hands are shaking so violently that I nearly drop the phone twice before successfully making the call. Her voice sounds distracted when she answers, probably busy with work or wedding preparations, and when I mention seeing Sarah's Instagram post, there's a long, telling silence on the other end of the line that confirms my worst fears. "Mom, it's really not that deep," she finally says, her tone defensive and slightly annoyed, as if I'm being unreasonable for even bringing up this topic. "It's just a girls' trip to blow off some steam before the wedding. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway because we're planning to go to clubs and stay out until sunrise, and I know that's not really your scene anymore." But her explanations sound hollow and rehearsed, like she's been preparing for this conversation, and when I press her for more details about why I wasn't even given the option to decline the invitation myself, her facade begins to crumble. "Honestly, Mom," she says with a sigh that sounds exhausted and frustrated, "sometimes you can be a bit overwhelming. The girls thought it might be awkward having you there and I didn't want to deal with the drama." The word overwhelming hits me like a physical blow, echoing in my mind long after she says it, because suddenly I understand that this isn't about a single party or weekend. This is about how my own daughter perceives me, how she talks about me to her friends, how she sees my love and involvement as something burdensome rather than beneficial. As Emma's words sink in over the following days, I find myself replaying countless interactions we've had over the past few months, searching for signs I missed, moments where my enthusiasm might have been perceived as interference rather than support. I remember how she would sometimes change the subject when I offered suggestions about the wedding, how she'd give me vague responses when I asked about her dress shopping appointments, how she started making more decisions without consulting me first, behaviors I had attributed to her growing independence rather than her growing irritation with my involvement. The realization that I've become the overwhelming mother, the one her friends need to be protected from, the one who creates awkwardness simply by existing in the same space as my daughter's peer group, is more devastating than I could have imagined. I've spent the last 28 years trying to be the kind of mother who stays connected without being intrusive, who offers guidance without being controlling, who shows love without being suffocating. And apparently I've failed spectacularly at maintaining that delicate balance. The woman who used to curl up next to me on the couch for movie nights, who would call me from college just to hear my voice when she was homesick, who insisted I be involved in every aspect of her wedding planning, now sees me as someone to be managed and contained rather than included and celebrated. What hurts most is recognizing that this shift didn't happen overnight. It's been building gradually, and I've been too caught up in my own desire to remain relevant in her life to notice the warning signs. Every time I offered unsolicited advice, every time I asked too many questions about her plans, every time I inserted myself into conversations or situations where maybe I wasn't truly needed, I was unknowingly reinforcing her perception of me as too much. I realized that in my desperate attempt to avoid becoming the distant, uninvolved mother I feared being, I had swung too far in the opposite direction, becoming the clingy, overbearing presence that my daughter now feels compelled to hide from her friends. That's when something inside me shifts fundamentally, and I make a decision that surprises even me with its boldness and finality. I walk to my computer with purposeful steps, my hands steady now for the first time in days, and I log into the hotel booking website where I made the group reservation for Emma's bachelorette party 3 weeks ago, the luxurious boutique hotel in Manhattan's Soho district that I had carefully researched and booked as my wedding gift to Emma and her friends. The reservation confirmation stares back at me from the screen. 5 rooms for 3 nights, totaling over $3,000 that I had gladly paid because I wanted Emma's celebration to be perfect, even though I wasn't invited to be part of it. I hover my cursor over the cancellation button for what feels like an eternity, knowing that clicking it will create a crisis that will force Emma to confront the consequences of her choices rather than simply expecting me to absorb her rejection silently while continuing to fund her celebration. This isn't about revenge or petty retaliation. This is about self-respect and establishing boundaries that I should have set years ago. About refusing to be treated as someone who exists solely to provide financial support while being deemed too embarrassing to include in the actual experiences that money enables. If I'm too overwhelming to be included in my daughter's bachelorette party, then perhaps I'm too overwhelming to be financing it as well. The click of the mouse button echoes through my quiet house like a gunshot, and immediately I feel a mixture of terror and liberation wash over me as the cancellation confirmation appears on my screen. I've just canceled my daughter's bachelorette party accommodation less than 2 weeks before their planned departure, and I know that within hours my phone will be ringing with frantic calls from Emma and possibly some very angry bridesmaids. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I've taken action that prioritizes my own dignity over my desperate need to be needed. And despite the chaos I know is coming, I feel more empowered than I have since this entire wedding planning process began. The phone rings exactly 47 minutes after I receive the hotel cancellation confirmation email, and Emma's name flashes on my screen with an urgency that tells me she's already discovered what I've done. Her voice when I answer is a combination of panic and fury that I've rarely heard from her, even during her most dramatic teenage years when everything felt like the end of the world. "Mom, what did you do?" she demands without any greeting or preamble, and I can hear other voices in the background. Sarah, probably Jessica, maybe some of the other bridesmaids who are now facing the prospect of scrambling for last-minute accommodations in one of the most expensive cities in America. "You can't just cancel our hotel," she continues, her voice rising to a pitch that reminds me of the tantrums she used to throw when she was 5 years old and didn't get her way. "Do you have any idea how hard it's going to be to find rooms for 8 people in New York this close to the date? Do you know how much this is going to cost us now?" The irony of her focusing on the inconvenience and expense rather than examining why I might have taken such drastic action is not lost on me, and I find myself feeling calmer and more centered than I have in days. "Yes, Emma," I reply in a voice that's steadier than I expected. "I can cancel the reservation because I made it and I paid for it, and I've decided that I'm no longer comfortable funding a celebration that I'm apparently too overwhelming to attend." The silence that follows is deafening, filled with the weight of all the unspoken tensions that have been building between us for months. And when Emma finally speaks again, her voice has changed from angry to something closer to desperate. "Mom, you're being completely unreasonable," she says, but there's less conviction in her words now, as if she's beginning to realize that her actions have consequences beyond her immediate social circle. The background voices have gone quiet too, and I imagine her friends are listening to this conversation, finally seeing the mother they dismissed as too much, asserting herself in a way that directly impacts their weekend plans. This moment becomes the turning point where I stop being the accommodating parent who absorbs disappointment silently and start being someone who demands to be treated with basic respect and consideration. 3 days pass in complete silence between us. 3 days where I don't receive my usual morning text from Emma about wedding details or her evening call to discuss her day, and I find myself alternating between second-guessing my decision and feeling proud of finally standing up for myself. I spend those days gardening, reading the novels I haven't had time for during months of wedding planning, and rediscovering parts of myself that have been buried under my singular focus on being the mother Emma needed me to be. On Thursday evening, just as I'm preparing a quiet dinner for one, I hear Emma's car in my driveway, and through the kitchen window I see her sitting behind the wheel for several minutes before finally walking to my front door. When I open the door, she's holding a bottle of wine, not just any wine, but the same vintage we shared on her 21st birthday when she told me about her dreams of finding someone who would love her unconditionally, and her eyes are red-rimmed in a way that tells me she's been crying recently. "Can we talk?" she asks, her voice smaller and more vulnerable than it's been since she was a child, and we end up sitting at the same kitchen table where we used to work on her homework together, where I helped her practice for school presentations, where we planned her high school graduation party and celebrated her college acceptance letters. "I've been thinking about what you did," she begins, pouring wine into the glasses I've retrieved from the cabinet. And at first I was furious because it seemed so petty and vindictive, but then Sarah pointed out something that made me realize how badly I've handled this entire situation. She takes a shaky breath before continuing. "She asked me how I would feel if David excluded me from his bachelor party and then expected me to pay for it. And suddenly I understood that I've been treating you like a bank account rather than like my mother." The conversation that follows is the most honest we've had in years, filled with tears and apologies and admissions that neither of us has been perfect in navigating this transition from her being my child to being my adult daughter. By the end of the evening, we've made plans for a mother-daughter weekend at a spa resort in the mountains, just the two of us, celebrating not just her upcoming marriage but also our evolving relationship and our commitment to treating each other with the respect and consideration we both deserve. Looking back now, 6 months after Emma's beautiful wedding where I gave a toast that made everyone cry and danced with her to our favorite song from when she was little, I can see that the shattered coffee mug in my kitchen that October morning was actually the beginning of something better rather than the end of something precious. The weekend we spent together at the mountain spa became a foundation for a new kind of relationship. One built on mutual respect rather than my desperate need to be needed and her unconscious expectation that I would always be available without requiring consideration in return. Emma later told me that the conversation she had with her friends after I canceled the hotel reservation was eye-opening in ways she hadn't expected, because several of them admitted they wished they had the kind of close relationship with their mothers that allowed for such honest conflict and resolution. "Sarah said she envies how much you care about being part of my life," Emma confided during one of our new weekly coffee dates, because her mom barely remembers her birthday, let alone wants to be involved in wedding planning. We've learned to navigate the delicate balance between closeness and independence, between my desire to remain connected and her need to establish her own identity as a married woman. The most important lesson I learned through this painful experience is that sometimes the most loving thing you can do as a parent is to step back and set boundaries, even when it feels terrifying and even when you risk temporary anger or disappointment from your child. By refusing to accept being treated as someone who was valuable only for what I could provide financially while being too embarrassing to include socially, I taught Emma, and myself, that relationships must be based on mutual respect and genuine appreciation rather than convenience and habit. Today, when young mothers ask me for advice about maintaining relationships with their children as they grow up, I tell them that love without boundaries isn't actually love at all. It's enabling, and it ultimately serves neither the parent nor the child. The goal isn't to be your adult child's friend or to be included in every aspect of their life, but rather to be someone they respect enough to treat with basic consideration and kindness, someone whose presence adds value rather than creating obligation or embarrassment. If you're a parent who has been absorbing disrespect or exclusion from your adult children while continuing to provide financial or emotional support without receiving basic consideration in return, I want you to know that you deserve better, and it's never too late to establish healthier boundaries. Your relationship with your adult children should be a source of mutual joy and respect, not a constant negotiation where you give everything and receive only what's convenient for them to offer. Start by identifying one area where you've been overgiving without receiving appropriate appreciation or inclusion, and consider what boundary you need to set to protect your own dignity and emotional well-being. Remember that setting boundaries isn't about punishment or control. It's about teaching the people you love how to treat you with the respect that every human being deserves, especially the person who raised them with unconditional love and sacrifice. The goal isn't to create conflict or to prove a point, but rather to create space for a healthier, more balanced relationship that honors both your role as their parent and your identity as an individual who deserves to be treated with consideration and kindness.